Hey everyone, welcome back. My voice has been kind of in and out lately, but I'm sure you'll be able to bear with me. To those of you new to the channel, I want to extend a welcome to you. And to those of you returning, it's always good to see everybody again, all the faithful subscribers. We're steadily heading towards around 20,000 subscribers, so I'm thinking of maybe doing something special once we hit that mark. But thank you for everybody's support. It has been a pretty incredible year. I started this channel back in January, and it has just been amazing the level of support that I've gotten, and I really, really appreciate it. Um, with tonight's topic, I want to cover something from a video that I actually was listening to earlier today. A man that meant well in giving this advice, but he was covering all the job losses of all the different people that are now over 50 years old here in the United States, and basically the cutbacks that have been happening in that age bracket, people getting over the age of 50, 55, and suddenly whoosh, they just lose their job. They get cut loose completely. And for those of you that follow this channel, you know what happens at that point. The company cuts loose of the job. They might find somebody to do it for a little bit less, but usually what ends up happening is they end up just spreading out the responsibilities from that particular job to everybody else there and not paying them anything extra for all the additional hard work they now have to cover. This seems to be the way of the job market here in the United States, but something that has been happening pretty regularly for the last several years. And the advice that this guy was giving, although well intentioned, saying, just work harder, make sure you stand out. If you end up losing your job, find a way to not say, identify yourself as far as your age is concerned. Basically, trying to roadmap a way to hang on to corporate America and the job market that is dying here. And some could argue is pretty much dead. And I have to ask this question right out the gate. Do you think corporate America really cares? I mean, I would say it would be an obvious answer that they don't. Do you trust Congress to save us from all of this, to actually have our best interests at heart and look out for us when it comes to our own job market? And the fact that unless you're a fool, you realize we've been thrown overboard for 40, probably longer than that, 40 plus years. Americans have been thrown overboard. Now, I know George Carlin mentions this, pretty wise take on it from years ago, and all of that has absolutely come true. The simple truth of the matter is corporate America doesn't need us. The job market, in many respects, doesn't need us anymore. They're either shipping jobs overseas so they get such cheap labor that it is practically slave labor and completely shameful, completely selling out the country that they come from because they can. Because Congress will make deals with them, will receive kickbacks because they've got lobbyists and attorneys that are going to make sure it happens. And they have been steadily, steadily chipping away at middle class America and at all the small towns and the economy of this country. And this applies to other Western countries too, but I'm focusing on America because this is my home base right here. This is what they've been doing for years. They have been getting to a point where they don't need Americans. They are decimating the economy, and they knew that this was going to happen. They knew it would get to a tipping point to where we would be in an economic depression, that economically everything would be destroyed, except if you were part of an elite group of people where you have tons and tons of money and you don't have to worry about it. You might say, Steve, that sounds very conspiratorial. I would say at this point, how could you believe anything different? All the signs point this direction. And the reason why they do it is because everybody that's not them is at the wrong end of the power curve. Unless we have enough power and influence to shift it, there's no stopping it. And unfortunately, Congress got on board with this. I mean, think about it for a minute. How are they not on board? People that make what, 170, 180 a year? multimillionaires, millionaires 25 times over. How is that not corruption? How is somebody that's a public servant becoming a multimillionaire 25 times over? They sold out to the elite groups that are giving them kickbacks. They violate the rules left and right. I would just say, you know what? Pretty much all of Congress ought to be incarcerated. The level of corruption there is just beyond belief. So, where does that leave us? The simple truth is they don't need us. That's why AI has been taking over and wiping out anything that's left that hasn't been shipped overseas, because they have the power to do it all. And until the day happens when the leverage shifts to where that can be stopped, there's really not going to be any changing of any of this. It would take something drastic. It would take something beyond their control that would allow this to happen. Unfortunately, that seems the way that it's got to be to me. I'm wondering how many of you feel this way. How many of you, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, you're over 50 and you've lost your job. Have you been able to find another job? Where do you really stand with this? What are your thoughts? Because to me, it seems like it is all kind of spelled out and it's very clear. But I am curious as to what you all think. Do you think that Congress, the corporations, basically big business in this country threw everybody overboard, found a cheap way to ship stuff in, screwed everybody over, and has now turned this country into basically an economic sinkhole that there's really no coming back from unless things drastically change? But they have no interest in changing it because the people at the top that have all the money don't care. Now, you might say, Steve, do you not believe in capitalism? I do. I'm a small business owner myself. What I don't believe in is selling out your own country and the people that are there to go and screw over other countries, putting them into a place of slave labor and not paying them a fair wage so that you can become a multi-billionaire and buy up the government back in the country that you came from to make sure that every policy that they implement makes it possible for you to do this and screw over your own country, destroying the middle class, destroying all the small towns. All of this makes logical, reasonable sense to me. It's not a rant. It makes complete, total sense that this is what has happened. But I'm curious what all of you think. Do you think that that's what's happened? Do you think that they knew all along that this was going to happen? And I've had people pointing out to me, have you noticed that even more so now, the spike in the commercials from Big Pharma, you need this kind of medication to get rid of your anxiety. And the only thing I can keep thinking is they know exactly what's the cure to most of our ills. A country that isn't screwing us over, a stable economy, jobs where you're taken care of and you're not allowed to operate in business unless you take care of people that work for you in this country, pensions to make sure that you can retire. And yes, I realize that's going to prevent some billionaires from being billionaires many, many, many times over. They might just have to settle for 2 or 3 billion, but it would stabilize things. Guess you don't need medication to deal with your anxiety if you live a stable life where it reduces a lot of the stress. That's a major, major point of it. That's sort of like offering you something to try and help with your health, but you have incredibly bad eating habits. And then you're shocked that they're giving you these medications to try and fix it all, when the reality is you need to be able to afford and have a better and stable diet. And that's really the only thing that's going to do it, is preventative medicine. And it just feels like everything in our country now is set up to be some sort of false hope or false promise, or try this product or try that product, all as a distraction to prevent us from noticing that the real things that need to be fixed, the real things that would solve and cure the ills, are the one things that are never going to get done. Those are the things that are never going to get addressed. I've mentioned this in other videos before. No one is ever going to prevent private equity from buying up all the housing and absolutely jacking the prices through the roof and screwing over most people so they can't even get a starter home. They're not going to stop private equity from buying up all the retirement parks and jacking the rent way up and screwing over the senior citizens. They're not going to do that because there's too much money being made on the back end and the corruption isn't being exposed. So your guess is as good as mine as to what would fix it. I can think of a few things, but I can't see anything other than incredibly horrific conflict to stop it. It looks like a giant collapse is coming. Maybe a collapse is what we need. So, love to hear from you all in the comments. I know it sounded a bit like a rant today, but it was just pretty heavily on my mind. And I feel like a lot of people out there will resonate with this. They'll understand exactly where I'm coming from. So, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. All of it helps with the algorithm, of course. If you're able to hype the video, that's a huge help too. I have a community that will be linked in the description, and also a course on helping you start your own YouTube channel if that's something you're interested in. So feel free to check those out. Join us in the community. It's completely free. And I'll look forward to talking to you all again in the next video.